Time passes, people move. Like a river's flow, it never ends. My friends, as we come to the end of the second decade of the 21st century, the 2010s, it's time to reflect upon the clear water's surface and see just how much speedrunning has grown and evolved over these last 10 years. These are the top 15 speedruns of the decade.
Two quick ones. I already know I'm getting there on the perfect line. Look at the f***ing pace!
I did it! I did barely skip!
Siglemic!
Now, before we get started, I want to point out this isn't some list where 10,000 experts all gave their opinion, systematically weighted and sorted to create a master list. I wanted to focus mostly on speedruns that defined periods of time, represented a key moment, were part of a larger picture in the community, brought new people into the community, or were just overall epic. And I wanted to stay away from stuff like hitless challenge runs or tool-assisted speedruns, which are incredible in their own right, but not what I was going for in this list. Admittedly, my knowledge of speedrunning isn't as whole as one might think, so if I didn't include a speedrun you think deserves a spot on this list, leave a comment and everyone will be keen to have even more speedruns to check out when reflecting on this period in history. Alright, with all that, here we go.
Here we go.
Hi y'all, I'm Pokey. This is my single segment run, and we have some commentators besides me.
And what a better way to begin than a run from right around the turn of the decade. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time in 1:1659 by Pokey Pummel, done in May 2010. At the time, few communities had leaderboards, so your run getting uploaded and accepted onto Speed Demo's archive was about as legit as it got. The video, which you'd have to download back then and probably find an obscure codec or two to actually play, started out by introducing a legendary cast of commentators.
I am Runner Guy 2489. I'm Cosmo.
This is Gianna.
And this is Ring Rush.
This was really the first commentated speedrun I can remember watching, with Pokey and his pals giving great insight into just how he was able to beat the game in an hour 16.
Alright, just to explain a bit about the trick you just saw, because we didn't really explain it much. What he was doing is using the recoil to hit a wall, push himself with high speed into the concrete guard. What this basically does is, in effect, clip slightly into him, just enough so that the game thinks you're on the other side of him.
The run basically plays out like this. Escape the forest, skip the Door of Time, do the reverse bottle adventure to give yourself the Shadow and Spirit medallions, activate the Light Arrows cutscene, skip the trials, and go defeat Ganon. Many of the strategies and even rules are incredibly dated. For example, Speed Demo's archive dictated that save warping was not allowed. This presents a pretty big problem when you do the Door of Time skip, because after the lengthy Becoming an Adult cutscene, you're now stuck behind the Door of Time. Nowadays, the Zelda community makes the rules and allows save warping. So you can just save your game, reset, and boom, you're on the other side of the Door of Time. But on this run, Pokey has to go into the Shadow Temple as a child and get the hover boots so that he can do a trick to skip back through the Door of Time and proceed with the speedrun. Idiosyncrasies like these make the run a unique view if your knowledge of Zelda speedruns is more recent, and I highly recommend watching this piece of speedrunning history. Suffice to say, the wonderful and informative commentary would pave the way for other commentated speedrun videos in the years to come.
He used RBA to get a quiver earlier in the run. So basically, now that he has a quiver and he has a bottle in the bow slot, the game thinks it's perfectly okay to give arrow drops. which he needs to use light arrows, which he needs to kill Ganondorf.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ganondorf's this big barrier that can only be taken out by light arrows.
It's not that big of a deal. It's like, oh no, we can only beat this game in an hour.
A truly legendary moment in speedrun history, and perhaps the greatest speedrun race ever raced. I remember being in the crowd for this race, and despite not knowing anything about Super Metroid, the commentators, Golden and Sinister One, did a great job setting up and explaining the tricks we were about to see.
Now you're going to notice they're going to skip the E-tank down here, and that's to save time, you know, because this run's measured in real time, not in game time, so they want to skip door transitions because those take a long time.
Yeah, and again, that's a very recent route change as far as Super Metroid is concerned. People used to get that E-tank. It's right there. It doesn't seem like it's a lot of time, but there's actually an energy tank later on in the run in Meridia that doesn't have door transitions around it, so...
While Garrison fell off the pace pretty early on, the other three racers, Krauser, Zost, and Ivan, were very close for the entire race. Krauser eventually fell a little more behind as the run went on, and I remember this point specifically, with Zost and Ivan neck and neck, screen to screen, the casters setting up the pivotal Metroid skip, which could save a ton of time and possibly cause one of Ivan or Zost to take a big lead.
Zost is through.
And both of them sitting on enough ammo to be able to complete the game, no problem now. The big Metroid skip coming up here.
Here it comes.
This trick very, very difficult. You have to have precise movement and several consecutive jumps around the Metroid. Both Zost and Ivan can grab. Krauser has
Now
a chance to
Krauser
get
can
back
come
into
back.
this.
They both missed, and then Krauser reached the trick, and we all got to witness something truly amazing.
Oh, he's got one section in the way. He's up and over.
Krauser gained a bunch of time on the other two, but it wasn't quite enough to overcome the gap. By the end, Ivan ended up winning by about 1 second, an unbelievable race given the circumstances. Buzz around the venue after the race was that Super Metroid was trending on Twitter because of all the true, genuine hype. And while I never independently saw that myself, it felt like what we all just witnessed mattered. It felt like it was the start of something big. I thought to myself, this must have been what people who witnessed the original Rumble in the Jungle or Miracle on Ice felt like. Capturing a watershed moment in history that won't soon be forgotten. And in a way, we were right. You could point to this very race as the point that inspired future speedrun races and tournaments over the next half-decade to where we are today. On July 3rd, 2018, a YouTuber by the name of Gaming Zone Entertainment uploaded a 2-minute video. Announcement: I got new unbeatable record for the Incredibles Rise of the Underminer in 5206. Gaming Zone Entertainment went on to write that he will not upload the video of the run itself on YouTube ever, and gave a few reasons, which amounted to: there is another speedrunner for this game who backstabbed me 4 months ago in speedrun.com. He banned me from Rise of the Underminer page and deleted my legitimate, valid world record at the time. And to make things even worse, he also made Kid, who I also had troubles with and despise him, from Discord, the Incredibles group, a super moderator on that very page. That alone destroyed my relationship with him, so you'd know it now. I used 3 new skips and new tactics that saved some time for my new world record speedrun. And I don't want to upload this video, so he will never learn about those tactics and skips. He will never beat this time, because he will always be second at this game as long as I live. Now, in hindsight, we can see that these are the ramblings of a likely troubled individual who, honestly, I wish the best in health and healing. But at the time, Gaming Zone Entertainment was widely ridiculed for this absurd stunt, even attracting the attention of popular YouTuber Charlie Moist Critical Penguinzo in one of his classic lighthearted jest videos. Part of the reason GZE struck such a chord in the community is because his behavior and claims weren't unique. But they were the most ridiculous representation of something speedrunners are faced with regularly. Anytime a speedrun gets the attention of a wider gaming news audience, you will inevitably have folks on Facebook going, "Wow, Zelda in 20 minutes is cool, but my cousin and I did it in 10 minutes when we were 13 years old." Or they just outright accuse you of cheating and tell you to play the game the right way. Now, it's easy to just ignore the trolls or the naive and go on with your life, as most speedrunners do, but Dwaynium B took it one step further. On October 28, 2018, about 3 months after GZE's original upload, Dwaynium B, the speedrunner likely at the center of GZE's ire, posted this speedrun, The Incredibles Rise of the Underminer in 51:17, absolutely blowing GZE's claim out of the water.
Done it! It was easy. It was kind of easy. Oh my days.
Now look, I don't know much about this run, I don't think many do. There are only 7 runs submitted. But the reason I've chosen to include it on this list is because of what it represents. It represents the absolute poning of doubters, haters, and trolls, and how speedrunners always rise above the challenges and doubt that they are faced with. As we move forward, more and more people are informed about speedrunning and understand that nearly anything is possible in these video games. But through the 2010s, speedrunners were often met with this sort of trollery and disrespect. And this run, more than any, exhibits the drive and passion of speedrunners to always conquer their goals, no matter what the haters are saying. Now, as much as I wanted to avoid including challenge runs or tool-assisted speedruns, there's just no way a speedrunning best of the decade list would be complete without this.
In this video, I'll be explaining exactly what I do to collect Watch for Rolling Rocks in 0.5 A presses.
If we go back only a couple runs on this list, we can hear commentary like,
By the way, if any TASers or memory hackers are watching this, someone's got to figure out what causes bomb drops. Like exactly what the factors are, because we're all very curious.
the inner workings of games, the luck, the RNG, the mysterious factors that go into speedruns, were at a time a complete mystery. Yet only 6 years later, no video would be more representative of how we've got it all solved as Watch for Rolling Rocks in 0.5 A presses.
Now, you're probably wondering what I'm gonna need all this speed for. After all, I do build up speed for 12 hours. But to answer that, we need to talk about parallel universes. And if you thought my other tangents were complicated, just you wait.
Panenkoic's doctorate quality dissertation makes it clear that this is someone who understands the game entirely. Panen's rebuttal of all those decrying "there's no such thing as half an A-press" shows a much grander, big picture view of these games and speedrunning knowledge than we'd all been used to at this point. In a nutshell, sure, you can't just press A half a time in a single level, but when you're thinking about how many times you press A during the entire run, these half presses do indeed make sense. Panen was also genuinely funny.
Note that we can't actually transport a scuttlebug to outside of its native room. They actually get stuck at the door. So, if your dream was to bring all the scuttlebugs together for one big jamboree, I'm sorry, but it's not gonna happen.
But sadly, this video would become too big to sustain. The memes of parallel universes and half A-presses which transcended not just speedrunning or challenge runs or gaming could never be replicated. And as a result, Panin felt the pressure too daunting to even try following it up. This was the last commentated video he'd ever make, which is honestly kind of sad because, yeah, you might never match the beauty that is Watch for Rolling Rocks in 0.5 A-presses, but surely he had a lot left in the tank, and many viewers would have loved to watch and learn. He did continue to make uncommentated videos on another channel, and while these are cool, they're just not quite the same. I think Panin's withdrawal after attaining virality does show a bigger picture too. It's not a normal thing to happen in anyone's life to get such a spotlight in such a short amount of time, and not everyone can handle it. Panin is far from the only one who's gone through that this decade. So, no pressure, Panin, you do you. Wishing you the best in health and happiness, but should you ever choose to return with a commentated video again, I know many would be welcoming with open arms. So, of course, Panin actually uploaded again on his main channel for the first time in over 3 years during the creation of this video. It's some crazy A-button ROM hack minimalist challenge for a $1,000 prize. Seems pretty cool, check it out. But hey, it's nice to hear Panin's voice again, even if it's just for one video. Alright, this next item is a remarkable, incredibly long speedrun that received a ton of notoriety when set, and I think it really represents a speedrunner's great desire to conquer even the longest, exhausting challenges. But honestly, I don't know much about this game, so I'm gonna get someone who does. Hey, Ricky, the Rixer, can you come help me out here?
I think it's important when we talk about the things that make the 2010s great in speedrunning, we have to cover not only pushing ourselves in the games we play, but in real life as well. RPGs are notorious for making speedrunners play for hours on end just to complete a single run, sometimes taking upwards of 6, 8, or even 10 hours. One of the greatest RPG accomplishments of the decade is that of Luzbilheim, arguably one of the greatest speedrunners of all time in the JRPG department, having the record in Final Fantasy VII, 8, and 9 simultaneously at multiple points in his career. The record we're going to cover today is from Final Fantasy IX. So, a little backstory. In February of 2013, the world record for Final Fantasy IX any percent stood at 908.06 by Karakorn, and it stood for about a year and a half, before Luzbilheim started running the game, and he took it lower to 904.18. Sub 9 was a dream in the community. Nobody besides Karakorn and himself had sub 910, and it wasn't because nobody was trying, it's because it was incredibly hard, required a lot of luck, and immense patience. Final Fantasy IX actually has almost 100 runs submitted to the leaderboards as of making this video, so despite the game being so long, it's actually seen a lot of activity this decade. A runner in the community named Mr. Swanzig had been around for a while and unfortunately was sort of stuck on emulator, which put him at a huge disadvantage for load times. When he finally got console, people were convinced that he would beat Luzbilheim's 904, and so he did with a 902.48, getting another time above 9 hours as expected. But as the title of Mr. Swanzig's 902 says, this was the world record that lasted 36 hours, and that is because Luzbilheim would deliver one of the most astonishing barrier breaks in speedrunning history with this time, an 8:50.53. The run broke all expectations, and in Luzbil's words, 36 hours later, I got an 8:50.53, in what for me was the best run I've ever done. The run broke all expectations we had about the possible goals for the game, because that time was not only a sub 9, but almost a sub 8:50, 10 minutes faster than the dream goal for the community. And all that just moments after losing the world record. It was the perfect run and the perfect scenario in the perfect moment. The run had outstanding luck with only 48 random encounters. The games before Final Fantasy IX, that is 7 and 8, have encounters with enemies based on a step counter, so after a certain amount of steps you take in the game, you get an encounter, but in 9 it's completely random. Anything under 52 for the whole run is quite good, so 48 total was quite nice for Luzbel. Luzbel also only got one encounter in the entirety of the Desert Palace, and the one encounter he got was a very quick escape.
Oh, man!
It's actually quite deadly to get an encounter in this place because one of your party members, Zidane, is not with you in this part of the game. He has a flee spell that allows you to escape fights with 100% success rate, whereas Luzbel here just had to run and hope that he would escape eventually. Around the 5-hour mark, Luzbel won the card game tournament. This granted him an item called the Rebirth Ring, which you essentially need to finish out the run. If you lose the tournament, you have to waste a minute synthesizing the ring later in the run. Topping it all off, at the very end of the run, Luzbel had an extremely good fight with one of the last bosses of the game, Death Guys. There's roughly a 30% chance that Death Guys can kill your entire party and end the run instantly, 8.5 hours in. Death Guys will always begin his opening turn using Meteor, and this attack deals random damage anywhere from 50 to 4,900. The only party members you really need for this fight are Zidane and Steiner, and most commonly one of them will get knocked out, forcing you to have to revive, which takes a lot of time, and it gives Death Guys more opportunities to get attacks in. In Luzbelheim's fight, both Steiner and Zidane survived the powerful Meteor attack, only taking 700 and 400 damage each, and he was able to close out the fight very quickly. Luzbelheim played extremely well and had really solid luck all throughout Disc 3. 4.5 years later, and only 3 people have managed to get lower than Luzbelheim's legendary 850, including himself holding the current world record. And if there was any doubt left that Luzbelheim isn't just a madman at these games, check out this blindfolded menu he performs live at HDQ 2019.
Alright, with the list cut down to 15 items, there are obviously tons of great speedruns I couldn't include which do deserve a mention. Now, I'm not going to cop out and just list a bunch of honorable mentions later on, so instead we're going to just use this 10 spot on my list to do the same. So here we go. ZFG's reign atop Ocarina of Time 100%, including his first sub 4-hour run, truly epic dominance through most of this decade. The insane race to sub 1 hour in Super Mario Odyssey, culminating in Nicroveda getting the 59-59 in March of this year. Amazing. Super Mario Sunshine runs, average Trey's sub 3 hour 120 shines run, Nindida's any percent 114. The entire Wind Waker barrier skip saga as a whole is just crazy.
I did it! I did it!
The blindfolded Punch-Out runs deserve a ton of love and respect. Damn 52 and pretty much any GoldenEye untied world record from Mark Rutsu or Perfect Ace or many others. There are simply too many incredible speedruns to include on such a short list. And so look, whatever you, the viewer, feel is your pick for a speedrun of the decade, you can include in this spot here. Yep, that's right. The number 10 spot on this list, it's all yours. So let me know what you picked by leaving a comment, and I think we'll all enjoy reading through it and checking out some more legendary speedruns. Can a single speedrun change your life? Well, the answer is yes, as this next run will go to show. On August 26th, 2019, Blizzard Entertainment released World of Warcraft Classic after more or less a decade of new expansion upon new expansion saw declining interest from its previously immense player base. Its release became one of the biggest gaming moments in recent memory. Twitch viewership peaked at over 1.1 million people at launch, watching the early moments of their favorite streamer fight to level up and complete quests before the hordes of people behind them could do the same. But who would become the first to reach max level 60? Thousands, maybe millions of players were all racing towards the same goal in what would become the biggest speedrunning race ever. Method GG, a very professional esports organization, had basically lived for this. Their guild was practiced, disciplined, refined. They made it a point on their broadcast that they were covering the race to the world's first level 60. Surely, many would have thought that one of their top gamers would be the first to max out a fresh character in WoW Classic. But quietly, an underdog story was brewing. A master from a foreign land. The Maltese Jokered TV had been practicing on his own, playing characters from level 1 to 60 on unsanctioned vanilla private servers. He had refined a strong method, using a mage class's area of effect spells to rack up tons of XP by destroying groups of enemies at the same time. This was different from the solo questing hunter method that had been considered the fastest on the game's first release 15 years earlier. But Jokered TV held unofficial records on these private servers for the fastest to level 60, so smart money may have been on this unknown figure all along. It became apparent pretty quickly, especially towards the end of August 28th into August 29th, that Jokered TV with his bald gnome mage was well ahead and was on pace to become the world's first 60. He had to fight through swelling fingers, severely reduced sleep, and anything else you'd imagine for over 4 straight days of gaming. But like a true WoW player would, he did.
Are my fingers swelling a sign of blood clot or what? Like they're swelling a bit. It's like it's cold in the winter, and your fingers swell.
While most of his leveling was simply done through the traditional mage AoE method, he would, for the last few levels, take advantage of a new game mechanic Blizzard added just for launch. You see, your character is set to one server within the game. However, since Blizzard knew millions of people would be playing it on launch, they made sort of sub-servers, or what they called layers within each server. So Jokered TV would defeat a bunch of enemies, then instead of waiting for them all to respawn, would get a friend to pull him into a different layer on the same server where he wouldn't need to wait for the enemies to respawn. So he'd take them out quickly for more XP. While a few questioned the legitimacy of this strategy, from a speedrunning perspective, given this is an in-game mechanic, this is as legit as it gets. And on August 30th, 2019, as he was clutching that last bit of XP needed for level 60, his Twitch viewership ballooned to over 300,000, an unbelievable number for an unknown streamer. It was done in 3 days, 7 hours of game time, or just over 4 days of real time. Jokered TV had reached level 60 in WoW Classic. Wait, what's that video playing in the bottom corner of his screen? Huh, maybe we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, it's this one. Right here, it's this one. My insane pace. Right here, this is the 112. Right here.
Jokered's single speedrun changed his life, for sure. An unknown streamer with about 1,000 followers just days before, he gained 100,000 followers on Twitch virtually overnight, thrust into the spotlight, with appearances on the most viewed Twitch Just Chatting show, the Raj Shalor, IRL streams from BlizzCon, and all the perks that come from being a legit established streamer. It all happened thanks to winning this one speedrun race to level 60 in WoW Classic. Beating thousands, if not millions of others in a once-in-a-lifetime speedrun race in one of the most influential games of all time to become an overnight streaming sensation definitely earns a spot on this list as one of the great speedruns of the decade. sometimes you just have to let a run speak for itself.
Basically, if you leave the track and come back on like 1 or 2 frames later, you get a boost, and you can just keep doing them back and forth to stack them and get lots of boosts and go really, really fast. It's just a quirk with the physics. There's a lot of quirky physics in this game, as you might be able to tell.
There's also a shortcut that he can attempt on the boost laps that's really risky and instantly blows him up if he doesn't do it right, so
yeah,
we'll see what
there's
happens.
like invisible checkpoints around the level that you need to hit, just like an F-Zero on the SNES, and if he does a very particular jump coming up improperly, he'll just explode and die and have to reset.
Oh,
yeah! Nice. Now, any sane person would not do that on the 3rd lap. However, for Chapter 5, $40 if you skip a capsule. You don't have to do it, it's just $40.
I'll consider it. All right, this is Chapter 5. A lot of people think it's one of the hardest stages in the game. You have 40 seconds to escape this exploding tunnel, and if you don't, you die instantly. It looks pretty simple, like a straight line, but there are walls coming in from the sides and above that try and crush you and stop you from moving. Additionally, you have a full energy meter when you start, but the only way to recover energy is getting capsules, which are really small and hard to hit. So during this chapter, CGN uses a technique called momentum throttling boosting, where in between boosts he turns his engine off. This means he can travel really fast, way faster than you're supposed to, and optimize his time as much as possible. Oh, that capsule skip, hopefully.
Oh wait, he doesn't have a boost at the end, so this is going to be a little,
So are we shift boosting on the final lap again?
Please don't. My blood pressure is already high enough. There is something wrong with you. Humans should not do this.
If you're ever planning on doing a speedrun in a gaming marathon or a commentated run, watch this one and learn. The way the commentators, Nigleria, Darkeye, Indexstick, and YoshiFan set up the runner, CGN, to hit the tricks, and then he delivers on them, creates an atmosphere of excitement and fun. Under-promise and over-deliver. Oh, this trick is really hard, only some insane player would even dare to go for it, and then have a competent, practiced, cool runner who can nail the tricks. No one wants to hear commentary like, well, he's been hitting this trick about 60% in practice, so he should hit it here, because if it succeeds, it was largely expected, and if it fails, now that really kills the excitement. Make the run seem like it's the most epic thing people have ever watched. And that's what these guys did with this F-Zero GX run at HDQ 2014, and why it makes a spot on this list.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
Beck Abney's Choco Mountain 3-lap shortcut 16.38 second time, also known as the Triple Weather Tenko, is undeniably one of the most amazing speedruns of the decade. Shroom up the wall, course things through on the other side, then back on this side, bingo bango, that's a lap. The story's already been told in its full glory by Summoning Salt in one of the most critically acclaimed speedrun videos of all time. To even attempt consolidating that in 3 minutes would be a fool's errand. So instead, to give you perspective on the mastery of the run, we'll give some fast facts on just how rare and challenging it is to even hit one Weather Tenko. Only 18 people have ranked fast lap records with a single Weather Tenko to varying degrees of speed and ability, ranging from Abney and Frankie Morgan's tied 2.9 seconds to this 12.43 by Armin Moser. The 3-lap picture is even crazier. Only 6 runs are ranked, which include a Weather Tenko. Second place is Frankie Morgan's 44.30, where his first 2 laps are Weather Tenkos, the second lap actually missing his first attempt, followed by a third lap more traditional shortcut. And yeah, while it's 28 seconds off world record, it's still second place. That's nearly triple the time of the world record. And third place is even 10 seconds behind this. The 6th place time is even funnier. Daniel Lunkser hits it on the first lap. But watch his second lap, it's just a complete comedy of errors. And yet this run is still good for 6th place. This really shows you the power of even a single Weather Tenko. Before Abney's legendary run, he had 96 runs where he hit 2 out of 3 Weather Tenkos. Now consider that Frankie Morgan is the only other player to hit 2 out of 3, which he's done once, and Abney did that 96 times. The 3 out of 3 run is truly incomprehensible, and the dedication to the feat is perhaps even more impressive. Who knows if any Mario Karter over the next decade will be brave enough to try to match such a legendary feat. The prestige in the community of becoming the second person to ever hit a 3 out of 3 Weather Tenko and possibly even beat the time of 16.38 may be enough for someone to go for it. And it may be the only thing keeping someone going on a quest through 26,000 runs of literally ramming your cart into a wall. 16.38 is a truly remarkable speedrun which will live on in eternal gaming glory. This next run was frequently mentioned when discussing the runs of the decade, and based on public opinion, it surely belongs high up on this list. Thing is, it's another game I never really played nor know much about, so hey Ricky, can you come do another segment?
In the early days of Speed Demo's archive, it was very common to see segmented runs being posted as opposed to single segment runs on the site. A segmented run is where you record a segment of your speedrun ranging from, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, until you get the segment you want, you save the game, and you grind out the next segment, rinse and repeat until you beat the game. This type of speedrunning would later be less prevalent as Twitch live streaming became the more viewer-friendly thing to watch. But segmented runs were especially popular with the late 90s shooters such as Doom and Quake. In these games, you could record your segments using demo files and send them between runners. These demo files were extremely small, so they were easy to send up over dial-up connection in the 90s, with internet speeds being kind of at a snail's pace at the time. Once all the segments were collected, you could stitch them together seamlessly to create an entertaining segmented run. And on June 11th, 1997, that would come true, as Quake Done Quick spawned as the first segmented run, stitching together all the best segments that people could get at the time. This method of stitching together demo files was also useful for one of the best first-person shooter speed games out there, Half-Life. In the years between 2003 to 2006, a runner by the name of Spider Waffle would create a segmented speedrun in 29 minutes and 41 seconds, using this exact same method. This run garnered a lot of attention for its impressive movement and strategies utilized. It would take a whole 11 years for this run to be matched single segment, beaten by exactly 2 seconds in 2017 by Proto-Oz. Spider Waffle's run was quite the feat for its time, and following the years after the run came out, Half-Life really wouldn't see all that much action following the success of the run. In 2011 and 2012, Twitch live streaming was yet again on the horizon, and you'd think that this would spill the death for segmented runs as a whole. But the people playing Half-Life around this time weren't done quite yet. In 2010, Quadrazid and Spiderwaffle launched a new Half-Life project. This was going to be their magnum opus when it came to segmented runs. This is what we now know today as Half-Life 21. Half-Life 21, also known by its more accurate title, Half-Life in 2041, is a segmented speedrun done between the years 2010 and 2014. This time, it wasn't only a single-player effort, but 7 individuals who worked on grinding out perfect segments, as well as many more working out strategies and optimizations. The run is outstanding and gathered high praise coming out, and today has over 6 million views on Quad's channel. It's a game with what seems to be an endless ceiling. The run uses many object boosts, which is when you grab a movable object, pushing it, and then releasing it at a precise time, flinging you to the desired direction with a bunch of speed. You can then preserve the speed that you get from object boosting with bunny hopping and air strafing. Since the runners could attempt segments over and over again, full speed is only lost when absolutely necessary. In the chapter On a Rail, object boosting and grenade boosting is heavily used to preserve high speeds. This was already done in Spiderwaffle's segmented run from 2006, but this time the speeds are much, much higher. In the first chapter of the game, Anomalous Materials, the runners use a delivery cart to object boost themselves into a loading trigger to the next chapter. A viable setup for this object boost would not be done in single segment until 3 years later. In the chapter Residue Processing, the runners take a completely different route from the single segment runs and uses a clever boost from a head crab to cut out a small part of the map. This run also utilizes a glitch in surface tension that allows you to go above your 100 HP cap. This door has a different property from the rest in that it deals -1 damage to you on every frame. Every door in the game deals 1 damage to you when stuck, but this specific door was just overlooked in development. Runners get themselves stuck and thus damaging themselves on every frame. Since the segmented run runs at 1000 FPS, they gain a lot of HP really quickly. This is known as IHD, or Infinite Health Door, and the HP they choose to leave with is 4,738 to be exact. This health is the exact amount of health that they need for every damage boost with grenades and enemies, and they finish the run out with exactly 1 HP. A perfect calculation. The routing that must have gone into how much damage you take from each boost is just absolutely ludicrous. Everyone involved with Half-Life 21 should look back and be proud. It is still an amazing run to this day. It holds up so well, and while many segmented runs came out this decade, I think this is most likely the apex.
Yeah, segmented runs are almost like tool-assisted speedruns in that they're assembled out of the best, smaller bits and pieces performed over thousands of times. But what's crazy is that tool-assisted speedrunners have access to all sorts of emulation and memory tools, while segmented runners are literally playing out these pieces with the same controllers or consoles or keyboards as you and I would have. Absolutely mad. A huge thanks to Ricky the Rixer for joining me in this video and sharing some of his epic speedrun knowledge and giving some more variety to this video. He has some cool speedrunning stuff on his channel, so check it out if you're feeling generous. There's one game more than any other where anytime a new speedrun record is set, it's basically major international world news. And that's Super Mario Bros. 1, the original, on NES. In the previous decade, only a handful of people speedran this game, and did so glitchlessly, since the ultimate mark of credibility was for your run to be accepted on the once prestigious Twin Galaxies leaderboards, whose oppressive reign over the gaming community forbid glitches of any kind. However, in 2007, a young hero named Andrew G decided, forget that, I don't really care if my run is on Twin Galaxies, I just want to beat the game as fast as I can. And that's what he did. The record had stood at a glitchless 5:05 by Scott Kessler. So Andrew set out to find any glitch or time save he could, discovering the legendary World 4-2 wrong warp along the way, saving about 5 seconds. Andrew used this in 2007 to get a run of just over 5 minutes. In Andrew's own words from the description of this 2007 YouTube upload, notice the backward jumps into objects in 4.2. This allows for the pipe to be tricked because Mario is not in the center of the screen as he should be. But this speedrun was done in 2007 and was just over 5 minutes, so why is it on this list? Well, it's not. 3 years later, Andrew G set out to become the first person to get a sub 5-minute time in Super Mario Bros. And on December 24th, 2010, he did just that. The run didn't have anything new, but was just more finely executed than his previous runs. The 4:59 became massive news, making the rounds worldwide, and was the first time I remember having my non-speedrunner friends share the video with me on Facebook. You know, back when Zoomers still used Facebook. We've since come a long way, and now well over 100 people have played Super Mario Bros. In under 5 minutes. There's something so arbitrary with numbers and barriers. What are the chances that Super Mario Bros. 1 would just happen to be beatable in just under 5 minutes? Yet it ends up being so clean, so smooth, such a great representation of the passion and dedication of speedrunners. And yes, the record would be improved. Pretty much any second cut in this game is a milestone, and any milestone could have made this list. The first 4:58 by Andrew G, 4:57 by IOL, the 4:56 by Darbian, and of course the 4:55 by Cosmic, and many improvements since and in between. All amazing runs that made ripples across the world. But Andrew G's passion, innovation, and ability to think outside the box, which in itself became a multi-year quest to get sub 5 minutes, that's my pick for this spot as a defining speedrun of the decade.
Here we go!
If you joined or started paying attention to the speedrunning community in 2015 or later, there's a good chance you might have heard legends about this character named Siglemic, but never really knew why he was so influential. So who was he? And what did he do? It's time for a little bit of a story. Siglemic was an old-school 2000s, early 2010s gamer involved in various online communities, including Zelda speedrunning, but he eventually would focus mostly on Super Mario 64. Now, comparing Sig to a Jesus figure might be a bit much, I admit, but I maintain that August 2012 is more or less year zero when it comes to speedrunning, with anything before that as almost prehistory, and anything after that more modern history. So what happened in August 2012? Well, I'm not sure I can possibly describe it if you weren't around, but let's try. First, we need to talk about Super Mario 64 120 Star, basically the main event of speedrunning, the most storied, coveted, and epic of all speedrun categories. One thing 120 Star has going for it above many other categories in other games is that you will always need to collect all 120 stars, which makes it somewhat immune to massive game breaks and skips like we've seen in Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker, and this means that when someone gets a new world record in 120 Star, it's almost certainly due to improved skill rather than just using a new strategy that saves 30 minutes. So the prehistory of 120 Star shows that in 2010, we first started seeing documented runs in the category in under 2 hours. Competition exploded over the next 2 years, mostly in Japan, leading to minutes being chopped from the speedrun down to a 147 by Nero in late 2011. But aha! Out of nowhere, an American hero comes along, Siglemic, to take the record for the first time at 147.10. Through 2012, Nero and Honey would improve the record once each, So going into August 2012, it stood at 146.35. The following month would see the most influential, epic period of speedrunning to date. Siglemic decided that he was going to stream every day in August 2012, at least 12 hours on twitch.tv. While Twitch had been around for about a year, it was at this point when its popularity really started taking off. Siglemic would regularly get 4,000 viewers during his attempts, with the view count ballooning up to 10,000 or 30,000 sometimes when Twitch staff would put his stream on the front page, if he were on the run. I mean, think about that. How many speedrunners get 4,000 viewers today? Sig's reach was undeniable and magical. This was a time on Twitch before personality streamers or virtual girlfriends. Not that there's anything against them, they just weren't around back then. It was a time when the only way to get viewers was to be good. At an esport, at speedrunning, at gaming. And Siglemic was damn good. Siglemic improved the record to 146.23, 146.21, and then Honey appeared and bopped him down to 145.41. Sig was playing every day though, so hours later he'd take back the record at 145.35.
Oh my god. Oh, I didn't think I was going to be able to with this run. Ugh. I already got the world record like 2 hours ago, and then I just started a run and got it back.
And then Sig struggled for the next few weeks to improve, even though lower was certainly possible. With more eyes on the stream, more pressure mounted, and more runs on world record pace were lost. On September 2nd, 2012, as time was running out on summer, Siglemic finally nailed the first 144. A truly remarkable and historic speedrun. Siglemic brought in an immeasurable number of new eyes to speedrunning and inspired countless people to pick up the controller and start their own journeys. One of Siglemic's many contributions to speedrunning was this 70-star guide, a Google Doc that linked to videos he recorded and uploaded, demonstrating easy, moderate, and hard speed strats for each of the game's 70 stars in that category. This alone was used by probably several hundred people as their first step into Super Mario 64 speedrunning. In my case, I can absolutely point to these runs as the thing that brought me back into speedrunning after a 2-year hiatus. Siglemic would keep streaming. At this point, he was one of very few people able to make a modest living from playing video games on Twitch, something unheard of at the time, though he wouldn't be grinding 12 hours every single day anymore. In October, he hit a 144.23, and it was apparent then, if not well before, that a 143 was indeed possible and was his ultimate goal. Come January 2013, Siglemic appeared at AGDQ, finally revealing his face live to an audience of tens of thousands, and delivering a very solid 147 run there. Not long after, he would return to his own stream and improve his 120 star once again to 144.01, agonizingly close to his ultimate goal of 143. You'd think it wouldn't have been much longer until he finally nailed the 143, but no. Weeks would pass, then months, then years. Or, well, a year. 144.01 stood as the record that whole time. The psychological barrier of finally cutting into a time you've been seeking for ages is even tougher to break than the physical time barrier. Sig had numerous opportunities for 143, but they all fell apart in Rainbow Ride, or TikTok Clock, or Bowser in the Sky, or any point earlier. While Siglemic's streams became more and more sparse, a new challenger was arriving on the scene. Puncation was a rising star in the game, and began to encroach into the 144s, creeping up on Siglemic's territory, threatening to become the first person to get the fabled 143. Time was running out and Punke was closing in, and by spring 2014, Siglemic knew he had one last shot, one opportunity. Would he capture it or let it slip? Well, on April 22nd, 2014, he got this speedrun.
All right, 143. That's it. I just got 143. Damn, that was sick.
Honestly, any of these runs could take this spot on this list, so just consider this to be about all of them, and about Siglemic's incredible influence on speedrunning. Super Mario 64, and especially 120 Star, remains the premier speedrun of all. And no, that's not to say that other speedruns don't matter, but everyone knows, everyone understands, and everyone can relate to the quests of the 120 Star speedrunners. And perhaps unbelievably, this would be the last world record Siglemic would ever set in the category. Time passed, people moved. Like a river's flow, it never ended. A month after Sig's 143, Puncation would take the record with 143.42 and would go on to set the next 10 records in 120 Star, all the way down to a 142.32. In early 2015, a surprising old friend would return. Nero, who last set a 120 Star record in March 2012, had reappeared with a stunning 142.15 and then 142.09 not much later. A storm was brewing, however. A storm of cheese. The young and ambitious Alan Cheese05 Alvarez had been rising up the ranks with amazingly fast Super Mario 64 speedruns, with many runs on world record pace. He was inevitable. It was only a matter of time until he broke through and got some kind of world record. And on April 5th, 2015, he got this speedrun.
I was so determined on Mario this whole year. I just knew I was gonna do well. That's the thing. I just knew that I'm gonna get world record, I guess.
141.16, a truly remarkable speedrun, a new record by nearly a full minute. His original YouTube description from that date reads, "This run was absolutely insane and unexpected, amazing nonetheless. I will grind for 140. The new era of SM64 speedrunning has begun." Oh, and how right he was. If you were to mention in Siglemic's chat, not even 3 years earlier, that you thought something in the 140s were possible in 120 Star, you'd have been laughed out of the room. Yet here we were only 3 years later. Riskier and less consistent single-star strategies had been investigated, refined, and practiced, and the speedrunner's spirit as a whole had grown stronger and stronger. Cheese's dominance in the game would continue. Through 2016, Cheese would improve the record another 8 times, with Puncation taking it from him on 2 occasions. And to begin 2017, the record stood at 140.10, agonizingly close to 139. Anytime a new minute barrier gets broken, it's a pretty big deal, and dropping from the 140s into 139 just felt so massive. The mental barrier in these situations is far stronger than the merely physical time barrier. In fact, both Cheese's 140.10 and 140.12 had 139 potential, with his 140.12 losing some 20 odd seconds in Tall Tall Mountain, among other places, and his 140-10 being on track for 139 right up until the very end, where he missed 2 Bowser throws.
Please!
The pressure was crushing, and many chances at 139 crumbled away. In April 2017, Cheese got a 140.05, inching closer to the 139 dream, but still, several weeks would pass without breaking through. And the pressure would mount even more on May 3rd, 2017, when an unexpected challenger would approach. Batora, a Japanese runner who last held the world record in 2010 at 152.02, had been derusting, grinding, playing, and matched Cheese's 140.05. Might Batora burst in there and take the glory of 139 for himself? Well, pressure does make diamonds after all. So with the pressure of Batora on his heels, and his own doubts, chokes, and the whole world watching, the very next day, May 4th, 2017, Cheese got this run.
my God. Ay, está temblando, chavo.
Grandma.
Ay, qué bueno.
Oh my God, man. New generation of Mario 64 speedrunning.
Finally, 139, the last major barrier broken in speedrunning's most prestigious and well-known category. It almost brings a tear to your eye. Not to be a downer, but so does the quality of this run with all the dropped frames at the end. These Twitch bit alerts are just insanely unoptimized, and if your computer doesn't have two 2080 Ti graphics cards, you're gonna drop frames with these alerts on. Something that continued to affect Cheese over the next few runs. You see, 139 was amazing and epic, but more symbolically so. Lower was indeed possible, and now with the floodgates open and the mental barrier shattered, the record would continue to improve. A month later, Puncation hit 139.49, but Cheese took it back the next day, and has improved it down to 138.51, where the record stands today. Batora and Liam Kings have since also hit 139, making it 4 runners who have dipped below the 100-minute barrier. It's hard to believe that at the beginning of the decade, the record was well above 150, and yet here we are today. Surely, this is the last major minute barrier in 120 star. Speedrun innovations are crazy, and while minutes may still be trimmed from the game, it's unlikely we'll ever see a 129 in 120 star. So this historic run, by one of the defining runners of the second half of the decade, will forever go down in history as one of the most truly remarkable speedruns of Super Mario 64 and of all speedruns in the past 10 years. Most people who have been following this channel for a while know that GoldenEye is the game which I've spent most of my time speedrunning this past decade and has dominated much of my content over the last 3 years. So I didn't want to include an overload of GoldenEye runs in this video. Though there is one that undeniably belongs, that came up in every discussion about speedruns of the decade.
An MRRL time. Me and Mark Rutsu. Me and Mark Rutsu. That's right. I skipped 113. I'm a legend. Dude, what a rush! What a rush!
Streets 112. I've already talked this run to death in at least 3 other videos, so I'll try to give it a different perspective here. First, to imagine just why this run is so epic, imagine for a second that GoldenEye tracked centiseconds. Or well, on Streets Agent it kind of does. Or imagine a game like Mario Kart that actually does, where you'd only improve your personal bests frame by frame, centisecond by centisecond. Now, understand that Mark's Streets 112 would be like if someone on a Mario Kart course became the first person to get 112.97 after months of trying and years of debate on whether or not it was possible. 22 people had 113, likely ranging from some low 113s through the mid 113s into the high 113s. In comes our hero Lockwood, who only has a record of 114, probably a high one too. Lockwood again is simply trying to get a 113 point anything. After a few nights of playing, he'd have gotten many mid 114s, a couple of low 114s, and boom, the perfect run, the perfect line, his insane pace, he skipped 113, he's a legend. Matching one of the most premier records set by one of the game's most legendary players. A skip that truly should not have been possible, and something I doubt we'll see again in the next 10 or 20 years. His reaction was adequate, to say the least.
That's right! That's it! Pumped watching this one again. I waited to cinema too because I said, oh my god, it might be 112. And it is! It is, baby! Yeah! Look at me typing to you guys. You guys didn't believe me. I'm typing a storm.
But here's sort of the dark perspective on this legendary run. In the years since, Lockwood has spoken openly about his problems with gaming addiction. Like many addictions, some gamers can manage it, prevent it from completely overwhelming them, and incorporate it into their mostly otherwise healthy life, while for others it completely destroys them. And Lockwood, who'd regularly put off personal responsibilities for months to play 15 hours a day of Black Desert Online or Escape from Tarkov, or the game that finally gave him his reckoning, World of Warcraft Classic, was someone who felt gaming destroyed him. He's recently given up gaming completely and has kept clean since about October, so keep going, Lockwood, we're proud of you. But the point is this. What you're witnessing when you watch Streets 112 is the exact moment of an addict's highest high ever. The unmatchable dragon chase where you somehow not only catch the dragon, but tame, ride, and fly away on the beast. An impossible dream. Gamers live for moments like this, which is why it's resonated with so many in the years since. In Streets 112, you are taken along on a journey, reaching heights that literally should not be possible. No one should have experienced such a rush, such a run. And it's not hard to see why Lockwood, always chasing a moment like that, could only come crashing back to Earth when it was never possible to experience something like it ever again. Anyways, enough of the dark side of Streets 112. For the healthy gamers out there, it is a moment of true glory, glee, and happiness that inspires viewers to reach greatness. And so long as you game responsibly, that's a great source of motivation. Streets 112 has reached all corners of the gaming world, with your favorite streamer probably having reacted to it at some point, and countless memes and references to it wherever you might look. Before we get to number one, I just want to say, wow, what a ride it's been these last 10 years in speedrunning. There have been many ups, many downs, many disagreements along the way, but at the end of the day, I think we all, as speedrunners, need to remember that we have more in common than things that make us different, and that alone has united us in a common cause of playing video games as fast as possible. I can't understate the influence that live streaming has had on speedrunning this decade. In 2009 and earlier, you might find a video of a cool run, but unless you knew a lot about the game, there wasn't any more to it than that. It was just a video game. But live streaming, seeing the passion, the hours gone by, the runs desperately choked away, the whole process, brings us closer together and gives us a new perspective, particularly on those who speedrun. Speedrunning is a nihilistic activity by definition. It's time-wasting, unproductive, yet the triumphs are very real. And learning about the speedrunners through their very real triumphs and very real flaws somehow gives an incredible window into the modern human condition. If you've been enjoying the background music used in this and many other videos this year, it was mostly written, performed, and produced by my old pal Carathorn. We've uploaded most of it to his channel now, so you can check it out there if you'd like. Alright, with all that, on to number 1. Number 1. Where do we even start? Well, this moment in time seems as good as any. Awesome Games Done Quick 2012. Narcissa Wright performs a Medallion Stones Trials run in about 2.5 hours, displaying tons of tricks and strategies that most people would be seeing for the very first time. The any % record at this moment stood around 55 minutes, using a variety of crazy reverse bottle adventure tricks, improving upon Pokey's run from the beginning of this list, and also discarding various restrictions placed on the run by Speed Demos Archive. But things would change drastically over the next weeks, months, and years. The night of April 13, 2012, this strategy was discovered, allowing one to warp from the Deku Tree to after the Ganondorf fight, cutting the speedrun in half, now able to beat the game in about 25 minutes. Through 2012, Twitch streaming gains popularity, and these runs become more and more optimized. Legendary runners including ZFG, SVA, Narcissa, and more trade records down to the 21-minute range, where it starts to get really good by Pydoix. By this point, Narcissa had been streaming, mostly Wind Waker runs, but also Ocarina of Time, regularly getting 3,000 or more viewers, becoming the largest speedrun streamer alongside Siglemic, really helping to expose speedrunning to a much larger viewer base than ever previously imagined. AGDQ 2013, Narcissa does a run of Ocarina of Time any %, using the latest strategies, and manages to give an entire story about the game's history within the first 10 minutes, followed by detailed yet simple descriptions of the tricks used. These 25 minutes were like a magician revealing all their secrets, yet still fascinating you with their magic all at once. Towards the end of the run, we hear this postulation, which may as well have been foreshadowing.
There is a crazy theoretical tool-assisted only method of going down the tower, but the problem is the only way to fall down far enough without the game detecting that you jumped off the tower is to get hit by a falling rock in midair. And you'd have to do that twice, and all the rocks are randomly generated. So there's no way for a human being to do that skip with the slingshot thing. But that would be like a theoretical tool-assisted only way of doing this faster.
Speedrunners being speedrunners, of course they wouldn't accept this as merely a theoretical, tool-assisted only strategy. They'd find a way. Instead of hoping 2 lucky rocks hit you at the perfect time, we'd need only 1 imperfect rock to use for an extended super slide. Get into this corner, clip through the fence, do some other stuff, and boom, void warp complete. This initiated another rush into Ocarina of Time any %, where again, Pydoix, Narcissa, the Macaron, and eventually Skater would lower the record down into the low 19 minutes over the next few months. By this time, Narcissa had become the leader of the speedrunning community. Not officially by any means, but through consistent live streams, sharing incredible knowledge about various games, and just encouraging everyone to have fun with speedrunning. There was no doubt that Narcissa was the one whose reach inspired so many others to join in and participate. And we weren't done there. In early 2014, Narcissa sought to get a truly remarkable speedrun. One that would last a lifetime. One that would define generations of gaming to come. To this point, the Ocarina of Time community was pretty open in allowing any version of the game to be played. A lot of this stemmed from the discovery, long ago, that the Japanese N64 version was faster, due to there being less text to scroll through in these cutscenes. Then the Wii Virtual Console came along, which had a better processor, thus less laggy, and saved a good deal of time in cutscenes. And since this was considered an official version of the game, it too was allowed. They even allowed emulator, which the Macaron used to get a couple world records. And so when speedrunners realized that the IQ Player, a handheld console released only in the People's Republic of China to get around their no video game consoles law, was potentially the fastest version of the game, since it was even less laggy than the Wii Virtual Console, well, Narcissa imported one and began running. This wasn't like a free minutes time saver. You gain control of Link 5 seconds earlier compared to Wii Virtual Console, so it's more a handful of seconds. And while there were arguments about the accessibility of the IQ Player or the legitimacy of such an obscure version of the game, after allowing so many other versions of the game, they logically couldn't disallow it. So Narcissa learned the IQ Player, a clunky challenge in itself, and improved the record a couple of times, to 1856, 1851, but there was one more insane strategy out there which could cut off some more good time from the record. A swordless run. That's right, skipping the Kokiri sword outright and only using Deku sticks to beat the game. This was known about for ages, but was considered just a little too difficult, because skipping Mido, who doesn't let you access the Deku tree without both a sword and shield, was just considered a little too difficult for single segment speedruns. However, speedrunners are speedrunners, and so it was made consistent, or at least consistent enough to attempt, and Narcissa did just that, pushing for lower and lower and lower. In April 2014, Narcissa picked the IQ back up and used it for new record improvements of 1840 and 1832, using the swordless route and Mido skip. These were pretty good records, a good distance ahead of second place, but we weren't quite done there. After a brief break, including an appearance at SGDQ 2014 to run Town of ZZT, among other things, Narcissa returned to Hyrule, ready to take it one step further.
Time!
At this point, second place was a run of 1852 by German runner GCTK24, who'd also managed to get their hands on an IQ. Narcissa's record of 1832 was still well ahead of second place, so why bother improving it? It's easy to sit on a big gap out in first place and only start playing again when threatened by a new challenger. But that's not what champions do. Champions take a speedrun as low as they possibly can, regardless of second place. Narcissa's streams in July of 2014 were just enchanted. Oftentimes, streamers and speedrunners are just going through the motions. You might like them, follow them, they keep you some company late at night, and that's cool, but nothing really special is happening, and they're unlikely to get a new record. But every now and then, a stream pulses with a certain type of magic. Palpable. You can feel the electricity flowing through the stream. The energy between chat and the runner feeds off each other into some kind of nuclear fission that gives the speedruns endless power. And run after run are world record pace. On July 16th, Narcissa hit 1829, a 3-second improvement, and still a huge gap ahead of second place. But we weren't done there. Something truly special was inevitable. On July 19th, skater 82297 got a new second place time of 1850. Still a distant threat to Narcissa's reign, but it may have just been the final ingredient needed for the magic to be fully brewed, for the run of the decade to be fully cooked. The following day, July 20, Narcissa was on the run of a lifetime. Every split got lower and lower, and when they didn't, it was only a second or two lost. Deku Tree, perfect. Wrong warp, nailed. Void warp, clutched. And when we were all in chat staring down Link's final blow on Ganon, this is what we saw.
Oh, it's over. Ocarina of Time is dead. Any percent is done. That's it. That's it. It's over. It's over. Oh my god, dude. That is better than the carry run by far, dude. 1810, man. That's gonna stand for so long. That's gonna seriously stand for a long ass time. I have no intention of improving it.
A 40-second record in a sub 20-minute game. And not only any sub 20-minute game, Ocarina of Time, the most thoroughly played, critically acclaimed, speedrun solved game of all time. Ocarina of Time was dead. Any percent was dead. It's the best run ever, period. Or at least the best run of the decade. Yeah, I know what some of you are thinking. If we skip ahead only 5 months, the run was beaten by another player, Jodenstone. It's true. To be honest, I used to be pretty mad at Jodenstone for beating the 1810 so relatively quickly, feeling as though he ruined the prestige of what should have been the greatest run ever. He played several thousand hours, including what seemed like months straight of 12-hour sessions, just to beat the 1812. I felt as though it was disrespectful. And while nowadays I see things a little differently, I understand his desire as a speedrunner to go as fast as possible is no different than the desire of any other runner. And given the nature of Ocarina of Time, the 1810 was never meant to last anyways. New strategies would and did come along. The record now stands at 1658 by Toria, thanks to even more item manipulation tricks and mastery of the game. So why does 1810 have this legacy as a run of the decade? The most visible person, the most famous and successful person in any field, is rarely the true best at what they do. But at that moment, on that hot Sunday night in July 2014, Narcissa was not only the biggest speedrunner, the most visible speedrunner, the speedrunner leading and representing all speedrunners, but Narcissa was also the best speedrunner. And that moment was magical. And that moment inspired us all. I truly believe that had it not been for Narcissa's runs at AGDQ 2012, 2013, the amazing trick explanations, the leadership in the community, the amazing content produced, the magical live streams, and the incredible records to back it all up, that none of the rest would have happened. Or at least very, very little. Yeah, a few records on this list would have happened in their niche communities to a few dozen onlookers, and that'd be cool. But I know that had it not been for Narcissa's influence, I would not still be here making these videos, telling these stories. I truly mean that. Narcissa inspired legions of speedrunners to take up their controllers and try to create their own magic, and to share their passion for video games they've loved throughout their entire lives, and to be unashamed in letting the world know just how much they cared, how much time they'd spent playing, and just made speedrunning as cool and accepted and as much a part of gaming as it would ever be. And more than anything, and more than anyone else, Narcissa made it feel, this decade, that speedrunning mattered. And that, my friends, is truly irreplaceable and will never be forgotten. The flow of time is always cruel. Its speed seems different for each person, but no one can change it. A thing that does not change with time is a memory of younger days. Thank you, Narcissa, for all you've done for speedrunning this decade, and thank you for watching. Stay true, my friends, and good night.